The explosion tore through the eastern district just as the sun rose over Ardenna IV. Patricia Wells dropped her datapad and ran to the window of her laboratory. Outside, 3 massive shapes descended through the morning clouds, each one the size of a city block. They looked organic, like enormous insects made of chitin and pulsing flesh. Green acid dripped from their undersides, burning through everything it touched. Patricia had been on Ardenna IV for 2 years, studying the unique plant life that the Lysians had cultivated for centuries. The Lysians were gentle beings, scaled and slow-moving, who believed that all conflict could be resolved through patience and understanding. They had no weapons. They had no military. They had lived in peace for so long that war was just a concept from ancient history books. Now that peace was ending in fire and screams, her communicator crackled to life. It was Elder Priest Nomara, his voice shaking with something Patricia had never heard from a Lysian before. Fear. Dr. Wells, you must come to the central compound immediately. We are under attack. We do not know what to do. Patricia grabbed her emergency pack and rushed out into the streets. All around her, Lysians were fleeing in confusion. They didn't run efficiently, didn't seek cover, didn't organize. They simply scattered like leaves in the wind because they had no framework for understanding violence on this scale. The invading ships released smaller craft that swarmed through the city streets. Inside them were creatures that looked like a nightmare combination of mantis and spider, each one armored in the same organic plating as their ships. They didn't use energy weapons or projectiles. Instead, they grabbed Lysians with barbed limbs and dragged them toward collection pods. Some Lysians tried to reason with them, speaking in calm voices about peace and understanding. The creatures ignored their words entirely. Patricia ran harder, her human physiology allowing her to move faster than any Lysian could. She reached the central compound where Elder Priest Nomara stood with the colony's leadership council. They looked lost, their large eyes filled with confusion and terror. What do they want? Nomara asked her. Why are they doing this? Patricia had studied galactic history more than most researchers. She recognized the design of the ships from intelligence reports. They're Dravik. They're a swarm species. They don't negotiate or trade. They just consume. They harvest populations for biomass. But we have done nothing to them, another elder said. We have no quarrel with any species. They don't care, Patricia said, her throat tight. To them, you're just resources. The compound shook as one of the Dravik bioships landed nearby. The building's walls began to crack. Nomara looked at Patricia with something like hope. Your people, the humans, you understand conflict. You have defenses. Can you contact them? Patricia felt her heart sink. The nearest human patrol is days away, maybe weeks. I can send a message, but please, Nomara said. We have no one else to ask. Patricia pulled out her communicator and linked it to the compound's transmission array. She sent out a general distress signal on all frequencies, describing the attack and their location. Then she added something else. A specific frequency she'd been given during her orientation. The emergency military channel for Earth's 3rd Expeditionary Fleet. The message was simple. Ardenna IV under attack by Dravik forces. 40,000 Lysian civilians. 200 human researchers. No defenses. Request immediate assistance. She hit send and watched the transmission indicator light up. The message would travel through relay stations, bouncing across the void of space. But would it reach anyone in time? Into the bunkers, Patricia ordered, taking charge because no one else knew how. Everyone underground. Now, move quickly but stay together. The Lysians began to file toward the underground shelters, their movements painfully slow. Patricia positioned herself at the entrance, helping the elderly and the young. Above ground, she could hear the sounds of destruction growing closer. Buildings collapsed. The air filled with smoke and the sharp chemical smell of Dravik acid. One of the human researchers, a young man named Leo Park, appeared beside her. He'd been working in the agricultural sector. How bad is it? Bad, Patricia said. We need to buy time. Get everyone underground and seal the doors. These bunkers were built for storms, not invasions, but it's all we have. The last of the Lysians descended into the shelter. Patricia and Leo sealed the heavy doors behind them. The bunker went dark except for emergency lights. 40,000 Lysians and 200 humans crowded into a space meant for half that number. Children cried. Adults whispered prayers in the Lysian language. Nomara found Patricia in the dim light. How long can we survive down here? Maybe 3 days if we ration everything, Patricia said. After that, we'll run out of air. And your message? Will help come? Patricia wanted to lie to give him hope. But she'd never lied to Nomara before. I don't know. The Third Fleet might be too far away, or they might be engaged elsewhere. Or they might decide that 200 humans aren't worth the risk. She paused, listening to the muffled sounds of destruction above them. But I know humans. If they get that message and they can respond, they will. We don't abandon people. It's not in our nature. Nomara settled down against the wall, his scales dulling with exhaustion. Then we wait. And we hope your people are as honorable as you believe. Above them, the Dravik continued their harvest. They worked efficiently, methodically, the way predators worked when they'd done this 1,000 times before. They had no reason to think anything would stop them. They'd attacked dozens of peaceful species across the galaxy, and none had ever mounted a real defense. But they'd never attacked anyone under humanity's protection before. They'd never sent a message that would reach Admiral Grace Howard while she was running tactical drills 3 systems away. They didn't know that she would read that distress signal, see the words Lysian civilians and no defenses, and feel something cold settle in her chest. They didn't know that she would turn to her communications officer and say just 4 words. Get me the fleet. And they definitely didn't know that those 4 words would seal their fate. The distress signal reached the relay station at Beacon Point 7 and immediately triggered every priority alarm in the network. Automated systems flagged the keywords: civilian population, active attack, Dravik forces. Within seconds, the message bounced to military channels across 3 sectors. Admiral Grace Howard was reviewing formation patterns when her tactical officer interrupted. Admiral, Priority 1 distress call. Colonial World Ardenna IV, Dravik assault in progress. Grace looked up from her screens. She'd been in the service for 28 years and had heard plenty of distress calls. Most came too late. Details: 40,000 Lysian civilians, 200 human researchers, 0 defensive capabilities. The Dravik landed approximately 40 minutes ago. The officer paused. Admiral, the Lysians are a protected species under the New Jakarta Accords. Grace felt her jaw tighten. New Jakarta. The memory still burned after 5 years. The Orthani had been a peaceful people, artists and philosophers who'd welcomed human contact. When raiders attacked their colony, Earth had dispatched a rescue fleet. Grace had been part of that fleet. They'd arrived 6 hours too late. She could still remember the silence when they'd entered orbit and found nothing but ashes. The Accords had been written in the aftermath, signed in the blood of species who'd trusted that civilization meant protection. Humanity had made a promise. Never again would they arrive too late. Never again would they let peaceful people die alone. Distance to Ardenna IV, Grace asked. 36 light hours at maximum burn, Admiral. Grace turned to her communications station. Send a fleet-wide alert. All ships to battle stations. Plot course for Ardenna IV, fastest possible speed. And get me Fleet Admiral Stone on Earth. The bridge erupted into controlled chaos. Officers rushed to their posts. Throughout the fleet, 12 ships began charging their faster-than-light drives simultaneously. Grace watched the readiness indicators flip to green one by one. The communication screen flickered to life. Fleet Admiral Richard Stone appeared, his weathered face showing the late hour on Earth. Admiral Howard, I just received the same alert. You're the closest response unit. Requesting authorization for Protocol Shepard, sir, Grace said. Protocol Shepard was the emergency response doctrine. Immediate military intervention to protect allied species regardless of risk or cost. Stone didn't hesitate. Authorized. Full discretion on engagement rules. I'm mobilizing additional battle groups from the 2nd and 5th Fleets. They'll reach you in 72 hours. Sir, in 72 hours there won't be anyone left to save. I know, Stone said quietly. That's why you're not waiting for them. Give them hell, Grace, and bring our people home. The transmission ended. Grace turned to her second officer, Commander Neil Okoye. Sound General Quarters. Launch all reconnaissance drones ahead of the fleet. I want to know exactly what we're facing before we arrive. Neil nodded and began issuing orders. He'd served with Grace for 6 years and knew her well enough to read the expression on her face. We're going in hard, aren't we? The Dravik have been operating with impunity for too long, Grace said. They attack defenseless populations because no one stops them. Today that changes. Across the fleet, crews scrambled to battle readiness. The dreadnought Valiant Dawn, Neil's command when they weren't running joint operations, powered up its main railgun batteries. Cruisers loaded their missile tubes. Fighter pilots ran pre-flight checks on their craft. Everyone understood the stakes. Lieutenant Sam Rosen sat in the tactical planning room, running simulations of the upcoming engagement. Sam was young, only 26, and still haunted by New Jakarta. His sister had been an agricultural specialist stationed with the Orthani. Her body was never recovered. Every time Grace authorized Protocol Shepherd, Sam felt a mixture of gratitude and grief. Gratitude that others might be saved. Grief that it came too late for his sister. The computer displayed the probable Dravik force composition based on standard Harvest fleet configurations. 60 bioships, maybe more. Each one was a self-contained war machine, grown rather than built, capable of atmospheric operations and equipped with acid weapons and swarm fighters. Sam had studied every piece of intelligence humanity had on the Dravik. They were efficient predators who'd perfected the art of harvesting less advanced species. They relied on overwhelming numbers and the panic of their victims. But they'd never faced a prepared military force. Most species they attacked had no concept of organized warfare. Humans were different. Humans had been fighting wars since they'd learned to sharpen sticks. They'd refined it into a science, an art, and occasionally a religion. And when humans fought to protect others, they fought with something the Dravik couldn't understand: righteous fury. Grace watched the countdown timer. 35 hours until they reached Ardena 4. Every minute felt like an hour. She knew what was happening on that planet right now. The Dravik would be methodical, processing the population in batches, loading them into biostorage pods. The Lysians wouldn't know how to resist. They'd try to reason, to negotiate, to appeal to mercy that didn't exist. And in the bunkers, 200 humans and 40,000 Lysians would be running out of air, running out of hope, wondering if help would ever come. Admiral, her communications officer, called out, "We're receiving additional signals. 6 more battle groups are adjusting course to converge on Ardena 4. The 2nd Fleet, 5th Fleet, even some independent patrol groups. Everyone who can reach the system in the next week is coming." Grace allowed herself a small smile. That was humanity. When the call went out, they answered. It didn't matter if you were on patrol at the edge of nowhere or escorting a supply convoy. When civilians needed protection, you came. Acknowledge all responses, Grace said. Tell them we'll save them a piece of the fight. Neil checked the sensor feeds from the advanced drones. Admiral, drones will reach visual range of Ardena 4 in 6 hours. We'll have real-time intelligence on Dravik positions before we commit. Good, I want target priority lists. Ready the moment we drop out of FTL. The Dravik won't know what hit them. Sam spoke up from his station. Admiral, what if they try to negotiate? The Dravik sometimes offer to release captives in exchange for supplies or technology. Grace's expression hardened. They won't get the chance. The moment we arrive, we're engaging. No warnings, no negotiations. They came to harvest innocent people. They're about to learn that some prey fights back. The fleet traveled in silence through the void, each ship a bullet aimed at the heart of the Dravik operation. Inside the ships, crews prepared themselves mentally for what was coming. Some prayed. Some wrote letters they hoped they'd never need to send. Some just sat quietly, thinking about the people they were racing to save. Grace returned to her private quarters for a few hours of rest. On her desk sat a small memorial hologram. The names of the Orthani who died at New Jakarta, including the name of Sam's sister. She touched the frame gently. Not this time, she whispered. This time we arrive in time. She lay down but didn't sleep. Instead, she ran through tactical scenarios, playing out every possible variation of the coming battle. The Dravik would have numerical superiority. They'd be in defensive positions around the planet. They'd have had time to dig in and prepare. None of that mattered. Because Grace Howard had learned something important over her years of service. Battles weren't won by the largest fleet or the best technology. Battles were won by the side that refused to quit, that fought with everything they had, that believed absolutely in the rightness of their cause. And right now, nothing in the universe was more right than saving Ardena 4 in 33 hours to contact. Somewhere in the darkness ahead, 40,000 Lysians and 200 humans waited for a miracle. They were about to get humanity's version of one. 7 battle groups of the most advanced warships ever built. crewed by people who'd made a promise to never let the innocent suffer alone. The Dravik had no idea what was coming for them, but they were about to find out why you never, ever attacked someone under humanity's protection. Warlord Crixath surveyed the harvest with satisfaction. The Lycian colony was proving more productive than initial scans had suggested. Already 20,000 specimens had been processed and loaded into the biostorage ships. The remaining population had retreated underground, which was merely delaying the inevitable. His engineers would crack open those bunkers within the next cycle. This was the Dravik way. Find a peaceful species, harvest them, move to the next target. Crixath had overseen 17 successful harvests in his career. This would be his 18th. Perhaps after 20, the Swarm Masters would grant him governance of an entire sector. His tactical officer approached, mandibles clicking nervously. Warlord, our long-range sensors detect anomalous readings at the system's edge. Explain, Crixath said, not particularly concerned. The Lysians had no allies with military capability. Their communications had reached only pacifist species who sent sympathetic messages, but no ships. 7 large vessels emerging from faster-than-light travel. Configuration unknown. They do not match any species in our database. Crixath felt a flutter of unease. Hail them. Determine their intentions. Before his officer could respond, every communication channel in the Dravik fleet activated simultaneously. A voice spoke in perfectly translated Dravik language, cold and precise. This is Admiral Grace Howard of the Human Expeditionary Fleet. You have attacked our allies. You have 30 seconds to power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Failure to comply will result in your immediate destruction. Crixath had never heard of humans. Humans? What are humans? Where do they come from? His science officer rapidly searched the swarm's databases. No record, Warlord. They are not registered in any known species catalog. Then they are irrelevant, Crixath said. Ignore their threats. Continue the harvest. Deploy defensive formations around the planet. 29 seconds had passed. Grace Howard didn't wait for 30. The human fleet opened fire. Crixath's world exploded into chaos. The sensors lit up with incoming projectiles moving at a significant fraction of light speed. Solid metal slugs accelerated by magnetic railguns, each one carrying the kinetic energy of a small nuclear weapon. They tore through Dravik bioarmor like paper. 3 bioships simply ceased to exist in the first salvo. The rounds punched straight through their organic hulls, the sheer kinetic transfer causing catastrophic structural failure. The ships literally came apart, scattering debris across orbital space. Return fire, Crixath screamed. All ships engage! The Dravik fleet responded with their standard weapons, acid spitters that could dissolve most known materials and biomissiles that burrowed into enemy hulls. Dozens of projectiles streaked toward the human ships. They didn't even get close. The human fleet's point defense systems activated, filling space with a web of laser fire and explosive countermeasures. Every single Dravik projectile was intercepted and destroyed before reaching its target. Grace watched the tactical display with cold satisfaction. All ships advance, fighter wings launch. Target their command vessels first. Neil coordinated the attack from his position aboard the Valiant Dawn. Cruiser groups breaking off to engage the orbital defense cluster. Dreadnought group focusing fire on the largest bioships. Fighter wings are clear to engage at will. 200 human fighters poured out of the carrier vessels like angry hornets. They were small, fast, and piloted by men and women who'd trained their entire adult lives for combat. Each fighter carried plasma cannons and armor-piercing missiles, specifically designed to exploit weaknesses in organic structures. The Dravik launched their own swarm fighters to intercept. It was a mistake. Human pilots flew with a precision and aggression that the Dravik had never encountered. They worked in perfect coordination, covering each other, setting up crossfire patterns, executing maneuvers that seemed to defy physics. Lieutenant Sam Rosen led his squadron straight into the thickest concentration of enemy fighters. His weapons computer marked 12 targets. He destroyed 9 of them in the first 15 seconds. His wingmate got 2 more. The last one tried to flee. Sam's missiles caught it before it made it 50 meters. Gold Squadron, form up on me, Sam called out. We're going for the landing craft on the surface. Those things are full of captive Lycians. His squadron dove into the atmosphere, pushing their fighters to maximum burn. Below them, the Dravik had established processing centers across the colony's major cities. Massive landing craft sat like bloated ticks, their holds packed with imprisoned Lysians. Sam lined up his shot. Precision strikes only. We're here to disable, not to kill civilians. Target the propulsion systems. Gold Squadron swept across the city in a coordinated attack run. Plasma fire and missiles struck with surgical accuracy, crippling the landing craft's engines without breaching their cargo holds. One after another, the transport ships lost power and settled heavily to the ground. They weren't going anywhere. The Lysians inside were trapped but safe for now. In orbit, the main battle had become a slaughter. The Dravik had numbers, but numbers meant nothing against human technology and tactics. Grace's fleet moved like a single organism, each ship supporting the others, creating overlapping fields of fire that no Dravik vessel could survive. Neil brought the Valiant Dawn into close combat with the Dravik command ship. The massive bioship tried to grapple with the Dreadnought, extending organic tendrils to latch onto its hull. It was a tactic that had worked against other species. Activate hull charges, Neil ordered calmly. Explosive panels mounted across the Valiant Dawn's exterior detonated simultaneously, severing the tendrils and sending fragments of organic matter spinning into space. Before the Dravik ship could recover, Neil opened fire with the main batteries at point-blank range. The command ship's organic armor, thick enough to withstand conventional weapons, simply disintegrated under the sustained railgun barrage. The ship began venting atmosphere and biological fluids. It was dying. Crixath felt his command ship shudder and groan. Alarms blared from every station. Structural integrity was failing. Life support was compromised. Half his crew was already dead. All ships, retreat, he screamed into the communications channel. Disengage and retreat. The surviving Dravik vessels turned to flee, abandoning the harvest, abandoning their grounded landing craft, abandoning everything in their desperation to escape. Of the 60 bioships that had arrived at Ardena IV, fewer than 20 remained functional. And those 20 were running for their lives. Grace watched them go. Every instinct screamed to pursue, to destroy every last one of them, to make sure they could never harm anyone again. But she looked at the tactical display and saw the crippled landing craft on the surface, each one holding hundreds of Lysian civilians. She saw the bunkers where thousands more were running out of air. Let them run, she said quietly. All ships break off pursuit. Begin planetary assault operations. I want Marines on the ground in 10 minutes. Priority 1, secure the bunkers and free the captives. Neil understood immediately. Admiral, if we let them escape, they'll just attack another colony. I know, Grace said, and the weight of that knowledge sat heavy in her chest. But right now there are people down there who need us more than we need revenge. We save them first. The Dravik can wait. Dropships launched from the fleet filled with human Marines in powered armor. They hit the atmosphere like meteors, their heat shields glowing red as they descended toward the colony sites. Within minutes, boots were on the ground. Patricia Wells heard the explosions from inside the bunker and felt her heart sink. The Dravik were coming for them. This was the end. She held Elder Priest Namara's hand and prepared for the worst. Then she heard something that made her weep with relief. A human voice over the external speakers, speaking English with a thick accent. Lysian civilians, this is Sergeant Diana Foster of the Human Marine Corps. You are safe. We're getting you out. Stay calm and follow our instructions. The bunker doors, sealed for 2 days, shuttered and then slowly opened. Light poured in, and with it came humans in armored suits, weapons ready, securing the area with professional efficiency. Namara looked up at the first Marine to enter and asked the question that would define everything that came after. You came. You actually came. Diana Foster pulled off her helmet, revealing a scarred face and tired eyes. Of course we came, she said simply. You called. We answered. That's what we do. Above them, the Dravik fleet limped away into the darkness, broken and humiliated. They'd learned a hard lesson today. In this galaxy there were sheep and there were wolves, and sometimes the wolves made the mistake of thinking they were the only predators around. They'd just met the shepherds. And shepherds had teeth too. The celebration lasted exactly 14 minutes before the alarm started again. Patricia Wells was helping Lysian children out of the bunker when her communicator erupted with urgent messages. She looked up to see human Marines suddenly shifting from rescue mode to combat alert. Sergeant Diana Foster pressed her hand to her helmet, listening to something on the command channel. Her expression went dark. Everyone back in the bunkers, Diana ordered. Now move. What's happening? Patricia demanded. The Dravik fled. We saw them retreat. They left us a present, Diana said grimly. Get these people underground. We've got maybe 4 hours. Admiral Grace Howard stood on the bridge of her flagship staring at the sensor data with growing horror. Deep scans of the planet's atmosphere were showing something impossible, something that broke every rule of civilized warfare. Confirm that reading, she said to her science officer. Confirmed, Admiral. The Dravik released a biological agent before they withdrew. It's spreading through the upper atmosphere at an exponential rate. Based on the dispersal pattern, it's a planet killer. Once it reaches full saturation, it will sterilize all biological life on Ardena 4 within 6 hours. Lieutenant Sam Rosen pulled up the projections on his screen. The biological agent appeared as a red stain spreading across the atmospheric model, growing larger with each passing minute. Admiral, there has to be a way to stop it. A chemical countermeasure, maybe atmospheric scrubbers. The dispersal rate is too high, the science officer interrupted. Even if we had the right countermeasure, which we don't, we couldn't distribute it fast enough. The agent is already in every major air current system. Grace felt sick. They'd won the battle. They'd saved the Lysians from the Dravik. But in the end, it wouldn't matter. Everyone on this planet would die anyway, choking on poison air while humanity watched helplessly. There has to be something, she said. We didn't come this far just to fail. Neil spoke up from his tactical station. Admiral, if we can locate the primary dispersal points, the sources where the Dravik released the agent, we might be able to disrupt the spread. It won't stop what's already airborne, but it could slow the saturation rate enough to buy us time. Time for what? Grace asked. We don't have a cure. We don't even know what this biological agent is designed to do. Down on the planet's surface, Patricia Wells was thinking the same thing. She'd gathered the human research team in the main bunker, along with Elder Priest Nomara and his council. Diana Foster had shared everything the military knew about the threat, which wasn't much. How does a biological weapon even work in an atmosphere this complex? Patricia asked, mostly to herself. Ardena 4 has unique atmospheric chemistry. The Dravik couldn't have designed something specifically for this planet in just a few days. One of the other researchers, Leo Park, pulled up his botanical survey data, unless they didn't need to design it. Dr. Wells, what if it's not a targeted weapon? What if it's just a general toxin that exploits basic respiratory chemistry? Patricia felt something click in her mind. Show me the atmospheric composition again. Cross-reference it with the Dravik biosignature we collected from the destroyed ships. Leo worked quickly, his fingers dancing across the display. Numbers and chemical formulas scrolled past. Then he stopped, his face going pale. Oh no. Dr. Wells, the Dravik aren't carbon-based like us. They're silicon-based. The agent they released. It's probably designed to break down organic compounds that their own biology doesn't use. Which means it attacks the specific biochemical processes that the Lysians and humans rely on. Patricia finished. But it needs a delivery system. It needs nodes or dispersal points to maintain the concentration. She turned to Diana Foster. Sergeant, we need to find where the Dravik released this agent. There must be physical dispersal devices, probably biological structures they left behind. If we can destroy those, we might be able to stop the spread. Diana immediately opened a channel to the orbital fleet. Sergeant Foster to Admiral Howard. We have a potential solution, but we need detailed surface scans. Looking for Dravik biological structures, probably clustered near major air current patterns. Grace ordered every sensor pointed at the planet's surface. The scans took 20 precious minutes. When they came back, they showed 7 massive organic structures scattered across Ardena 4, each one pulsing with the same biological signature as the Dravik ships. They were growing, feeding on the planet's atmosphere, and pumping out more of the toxic agent with each cycle. Those are the dispersal nodes, Patricia confirmed over the communication link. They're alive. They're literally breathing out the poison. We have to destroy them. Can we hit them from orbit? Grace asked. Negative, Admiral, her weapons officer replied. They're too close to civilian population centers. Orbital strikes would cause massive collateral damage. We'd kill thousands of Lysians trying to save them. Sam Rosen studied the tactical map. The 7 nodes were spread across 3 continents. Each one was embedded in urban areas or near critical infrastructure. We need ground teams. Precision strikes. Get in close and destroy them from the inside. Diana Foster was already ahead of him. My Marines can handle it. Give me demolition charges and the target coordinates. We'll take them out. Grace made the hardest decision of her career. Negative, Sergeant. Your team doesn't have the expertise to identify the critical points in an organic structure. We need Dr. Wells with you. Patricia heard her name and felt her stomach drop. She was a botanist, not a soldier, but she understood Dravic biology better than anyone else on the planet right now. She knew how their organic technology worked. If anyone could find the weak points in those dispersal nodes, it was her. I'll go, she said quietly. The operation launched within the hour. 7 teams, each consisting of human Marines and 1 scientific advisor. Patricia went with Diana Foster's squad to the largest node, a pulsing mass of Dravic flesh the size of a building that had rooted itself in the center of what used to be a Lysian cultural district. The node was defended. The Dravic had left behind warrior drones, biological constructs programmed with one purpose: protect the dispersal system. They attacked the moment the human teams approached. Diana's Marines moved with practiced efficiency, their weapons tearing through the drone defenses. Patricia ran behind them, trying not to think about the explosions and the screaming. She focused on the node itself, studying its structure through her scanner. There, she shouted over the gunfire. That chamber at the base. It's like a heart, pumping the agent into the atmospheric processors. If we destroy that, the whole structure will shut down. How do we get to it? Diana asked, cutting down 2 more drones with precise burst fire. Patricia checked her scanner again. We have to go inside. Through that opening on the western side. The opening was a sphincter of pulsing flesh that dilated and contracted with each breath the structure took. It looked like a nightmare, but it was the only way in. Diana rallied her squad. All right, listen up. We're going into that thing. Stay tight, watch your sectors, and don't touch anything unless the doc tells you it's safe. Our job is to get her to the core so she can plant the charges. Questions? No one had questions. They all knew what was at stake. The interior of the node was worse than the outside. The walls pulsed with organic life. The air was thick and humid, filled with spores and toxic vapors. The Marines' armor protected them, but Patricia could feel the wrongness of the place seeping into her bones. They fought through waves of drones in the cramped passages. 2 Marines went down with injuries. Diana pulled them back while the others laid down covering fire. They were running out of time. Above them, the poison continued to spread through the atmosphere. Finally, they reached the central chamber. The heart of the dispersal node throbbed in front of them, a mass of pulsing tissue the size of a vehicle. Patricia placed the demolition charges at precise points, using her knowledge of Dravic biology to target the critical systems. Charges set, she said. We need to get out, now. They ran. Behind them, the charges counted down. 30 seconds. 20. 10. Diana pushed Patricia out of the opening just as the charges detonated. The explosion tore through the node's heart, causing a cascade failure. The entire structure began to collapse, its organic system shutting down one by one. Across the planet, the same scene played out 6 more times. Human Marines and scientists fighting their way into the nightmare structures, planting charges and escaping just in time. Not all of them made it out. 3 Marines died at the 3rd node when a drone swarm overwhelmed their position. They bought enough time for the scientists to finish the job before they fell. Grace watched from orbit as all 7 nodes collapsed. The atmospheric readings showed the poison dispersal slowing, then stopping. The existing contamination would take weeks to break down naturally, but it was no longer growing. The planet would survive, but the cost had been high. 3 Marines dead, dozens more injured. And somewhere out there, the Dravic who'd unleashed this horror were still alive, still free. Grace opened a fleet-wide channel. This is the Admiral. The immediate threat is over. Our Denethor 4 is secure. But remember what happened here. Remember the price we paid. Remember why we fight. Down on the surface, Patricia Wells stood next to Sergeant Diana Foster, both of them covered in dust and alien blood. Around them, Lysian civilians were emerging from the bunkers, looking up at the sky where human ships still stood guard. Elder Priest Nomara approached them slowly. He looked at Diana, at the memorial patches on her armor for the Marines who'd just died. You lost your people saving mine, he said. Why would you do this? Why would you sacrifice so much for strangers? Diana was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, because if we don't protect those who can't protect themselves, then what's the point of having strength? Power without responsibility is just tyranny. We chose to be better than that. Nomara bowed his head. Then we owe you a debt we can never repay. You don't owe us anything, Diana said. Just live, build, remember. And maybe someday when someone else needs help, you'll be there for them too. She turned and walked away, leaving the Lycian elder to contemplate what he'd witnessed. Humanity at its finest and most terrible. Capable of great violence in service of great compassion. The news traveled faster than any ship could fly. Within days, every connected species in the galaxy had heard about Ardena 4. The story spread through trade networks, diplomatic channels, and civilian communication systems like wildfire, a peaceful species under attack, a desperate distress call, and humanity, a species most had barely heard of, arriving with overwhelming force to drive back the Dravik swarm. Ambassador William Rhodes sat in the Galactic Assembly Chamber on the neutral station Concord Prime, watching the reactions unfold around him. The Assembly was an old institution, formed centuries ago when the first spacefaring species met and decided that talking was better than shooting. It had limited power, but it served as a forum where grievances could be aired and alliances could be formed. Today, the chamber was packed. Representatives from over 100 species had requested emergency session time to discuss what humanity had done. William wasn't sure if he was about to receive praise or condemnation. The first speaker was a Turani representative, its crystalline body refracting the chamber's light into rainbow patterns. The Turani were an industrial powerhouse, known for their manufacturing capabilities and their cautious approach to galactic politics. The Turani Republic wishes to acknowledge the actions of humanity at Ardena 4, the representative said, its voice resonating through the chamber's translation systems. For too long, the Dravik have operated without consequence. Species disappear. Colonies go silent. We speak words of sympathy but take no action. Humanity showed us what action looks like. A murmur ran through the assembly. Some species nodded in agreement. Others looked uncomfortable. Another representative stood, this one from the Venn Collective, a loose alliance of merchants and traders. With respect, the Turani praise violence too quickly. Humanity deployed massive military force. They destroyed Dravik vessels. They engaged in combat that violated several interstellar peace protocols. Should we celebrate this? Should we encourage more warfare? William decided it was time to speak. He rose from the human delegation's seat, feeling the weight of dozens of alien eyes turning toward him. If I may address the assembly, I understand the concern about violence. Humanity shares that concern. We didn't go to Ardena 4 looking for a fight. We went because people were dying and we had the power to stop it. But you did fight, the Venn representative said. You destroyed Dravik ships. You killed their crews. You violated their sovereignty. They violated the sovereignty of Ardena 4, William replied. They violated the most fundamental right any species has, the right to exist. The Dravik weren't there to negotiate or trade. They were there to harvest a population like crops. Where was the assembly then? Where were the peace protocols when the Lycians were being dragged into biostorage pods? Silence filled the chamber. William pressed his advantage. Humanity believes in peace. We believe in diplomacy, but we also believe that some things are worth fighting for. The protection of innocent life is one of them. If that makes us violent, so be it. We'd rather be violent protectors than peaceful bystanders to genocide. The next speaker was unexpected. A silicate communion representative, one of the oldest species in the galaxy, rose from its seat. The silicates were enigmatic beings, crystalline entities that communicated through light pulses. They rarely spoke in the assembly, preferring to observe and calculate. The communion has monitored the Dravik swarm for 3 centuries, the silicate said. We have tracked 47 successful harvest operations. We have recorded the extinction of 12 species. We did nothing because intervention would be inefficient, would cost resources, would upset the balance of power. The representative paused, its internal light pulsing in complex patterns. Humanity has demonstrated that our calculations were incomplete. Sometimes efficiency is less valuable than compassion. The communion wishes to open formal diplomatic relations with Earth. We also wish to share intelligence on Dravik operations across the galaxy. William felt a surge of hope. The silicates were offering alliance. More than that, they were offering information that could prevent future attacks. Over the next hours, the assembly session continued. Some species expressed support for humanity's actions. Others voiced concerns about military escalation. But one thing became clear. The galaxy was watching Earth now, and they were divided on what they saw. While the assembly debated, something else was happening in a darker corner of the galaxy. Warlord Crixath, stripped of his rank and facing execution for his failure at Ardena IV, sat in a detention cell aboard a Dravic prison ship. But Crixath had no intention of dying in disgrace. His allies moved in the night cycle. Guards loyal to the old ways who believed the swarm had grown weak under the current swarm masters. They freed Crixath and dozens of other warriors who'd been imprisoned for various failures. Together they seized the prison ship and set course for the outer territories where the Dravic clans operated with more autonomy. Crixath stood in the ship's command chamber, looking at his followers. They were outcasts, failures, warriors who'd lost their honor, but they were also angry, and anger could be forged into something dangerous. The swarm masters have grown soft, Crixath said. They accept our defeat at Ardena IV. They speak of avoiding human space. They counsel retreat. He slammed his clawed hand against the console. We do not retreat. We do not hide. We are the Dravic. We are the swarm, and we will show these humans what it means to make an enemy of us. His followers clicked their mandibles in approval. Crixath began sending messages to the outer clans, to the warlords who felt the same frustration. The swarm masters wanted to avoid confrontation, but Crixath would give them war. Back on Ardena IV, Patricia Wells walked through the recovering colony with Elder Priest Namara. The planet was healing. Human medical teams had helped treat the worst of the atmospheric poisoning. Engineers were rebuilding damaged structures, but the psychological wounds would take longer to heal. Our people are changing, Namara said quietly. The young ones especially. They ask questions about defense, about weapons, about how to protect ourselves. This is not the Lysian way. Maybe the Lysian way needs to evolve, Patricia suggested gently. I'm not saying you need to become warriors, but having the ability to defend yourself, having the knowledge to recognize threats, that's not the same as being violent. It's being prepared. Nomara was silent for a long time. Finally, he said, Would humanity help us? Would you teach us how to protect ourselves so we never need to send another distress call? Patricia smiled. We'd be honored to help. In fact, there are already discussions about establishing a joint training program. Human military advisors working with Lysian volunteers? Not to make you into soldiers, but to give you options. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening. Species that had once dismissed humanity as insignificant were now reaching out, asking questions, proposing alliances. The Tyranni wanted to discuss mutual defense pacts. Smaller species wanted protection agreements. Even some of the more advanced civilizations were interested in human military technology and tactics. Admiral Grace Howard received regular reports about the diplomatic developments. She found it ironic that a military action had opened more diplomatic doors than decades of peaceful contact, but she understood why. In a galaxy where predators like the Dravic operated with impunity, everyone wanted friends with teeth. She was reviewing casualty reports when Lieutenant Sam Rosen entered her office. Admiral, we're receiving multiple distress signals. Different sectors, different species. All reporting attacks. Grace looked up sharply. Dravic? Some of them. Others are from opportunistic raiders and pirates. It's like Ardena IV sent a message that peaceful species are easy targets, and now every criminal element in the galaxy wants a piece. Grace felt anger burn in her chest. They think we can't be everywhere at once. They think we're spread too thin. She stood up and walked to the star map on her wall. Get me Fleet Admiral Stone. It's time to expand Protocol Shepard. The call with Stone was brief and decisive. Within hours, Earth authorized the creation of rapid response fleets, smaller battle groups designed to be scattered across human-protected space, ready to respond to threats within hours instead of days. Sam Rosen was given command of the first such fleet, a collection of fast cruisers and carrier vessels that could reach most Allied systems in under 12 hours. As the fleet prepared to deploy, Sam stood in the memorial hall aboard his new flagship, looking at the names of those who died at Ardena IV. Sergeant Diana Foster's name was there, added just days ago when she'd succumbed to injuries from the dispersal node assault. She'd held on long enough to see the Lysians safe, then let go. We won't let it be for nothing, Sam said quietly to the memorial. Every life you saved, every person you protected, they'll get to live because of you. And we'll make sure no one else has to die alone waiting for help that never comes. Back at Concord Prime, the Galactic Assembly session was ending. No formal resolutions had been passed, but the political landscape had shifted. Humanity had proven it was willing to fight for others. Now the question was whether the galaxy would stand with them or against them. William Rhodes packed his documents and prepared to return to Earth. As he left the chamber, the Silicate representative approached him. Ambassador, the Communion has detected concerning movements in Dravik space. A fleet is assembling in the outer territories. Size and composition suggest a major operation. Do you know their target? William asked. Unknown. But given recent events, we suspect they may attempt retaliation against either Ardena 4 or Earth itself. The Communion thought you should know. William felt his blood run cold. Earth had saved Ardena 4, but in doing so, they might have painted a target on their own homeworld. Thank you for the warning. I'll make sure our military command receives this intelligence immediately. As he hurried to send the message, William realized that Ardena 4 hadn't been the end of anything. It had been the beginning. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy as protectors of the weak. Now they would have to prove they could maintain that role, even when the cost became personal. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, Crixath's rebellion fleet grew larger. Other disgraced warlords joined him, bringing their ships and their warriors. They united under a single purpose: to punish humanity for its interference, to show the galaxy that the Dravik could not be challenged without consequence. And their first target was already chosen: the Lysian homeworld, where billions of Lysians lived under the false security of human protection. Crixath would show them that humanity couldn't protect everyone. He would burn their homeworld and force the humans to watch, helpless and too late once again. The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine the future of the galaxy. Would humanity's promise of protection hold, or would it shatter under the weight of impossible expectations? The answer would come soon enough. The attacks came like a storm, sudden and from multiple directions at once. Within a single day, 17 different species sent distress calls. Raiders hit a Tirani mining operation. Pirates seized a civilian transport. Opportunistic warlords tested the boundaries of human protection, probing to see how fast the response would be. Lieutenant Sam Rosen's rapid response fleet proved the answer: very fast. His cruisers dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the Tirani mining station, just as the raiders were loading stolen equipment. The fight lasted 6 minutes. The raiders surrendered the moment they realized they were facing human warships. Across the sector, similar scenes played out. Humanity's scattered response fleets moved like swift predators, appearing wherever threats emerged. The message was clear: attack an allied species and humans would find you. The opportunistic attacks began to decrease as word spread that humanity was serious about protection. But while Sam and the other response commanders dealt with small threats, a much larger danger was approaching. Intelligence reports from the Silicate Communion painted an alarming picture. Crixath's rebellion had grown beyond anyone's expectations. He'd united over 40 Dravik clans under his banner, warriors who felt dishonored by their leader's refusal to retaliate against humanity. And their target was confirmed: the Lysian homeworld of Lys Prime, home to 8 billion Lysians and the cultural heart of their entire civilization. Admiral Grace Howard stood in the Strategic Command Center on Earth, looking at the projection of Dravik fleet movements. The enemy was taking a roundabout route, avoiding all major shipping lanes and sensor networks. They were being careful, trying to achieve complete surprise. How long until they reach Lys Prime? She asked. 4 days at their current speed, her intelligence officer replied. We have forces in the region, but not enough. The Lysian Defense Force is still new, maybe 6 months of training. They won't hold against this many Dravik ships. Fleet Admiral Richard Stone joined the conversation via communication link from his office. We're mobilizing everything we can spare, but we're spread thin. The rapid response fleets are handling the smaller threats. Our main battle groups are scattered across 3 sectors. We can get maybe 30 ships to Lys Prime before the Dravik arrive. The Dravik will come with at least 100, Grace said. Those aren't good odds. No, Stone agreed. They're not. But we made a promise. We told the Lysians they were under our protection. If we abandon them now, every alliance we've built will crumble. Every species will realize that human protection is conditional, that we only help when it's convenient. Grace understood what he wasn't saying. Even if they couldn't win, they had to try. I'll take direct command. Get me every ship you can spare. I don't care if they're supply vessels or science ships. If it can mount a weapon and jump to faster than light, I want it. Over the next 3 days, humanity performed a miracle of logistics. Ships were pulled from patrol routes. Maintenance schedules were abandoned. Crews were recalled from leave. Commander Neil Okoye brought the repaired Valiant Dawn out of dock 2 weeks ahead of schedule. Its new armor plating still being welded in place as it jumped to the rally point. But ships weren't the only thing humanity mobilized. The call went out to the Galactic Assembly. Earth shared the silicate intelligence openly, showing every species what was coming. Ambassador William Rhodes stood before the assembly and spoke with quiet intensity. The Dravik are coming to punish the Lysians for calling for help. They're coming to punish humanity for answering that call. They want to prove that seeking protection is pointless, that the strong will always triumph over the weak. He paused, looking around the chamber at the assembled representatives. We're not asking you to fight. We're asking you to stand witness. Come to Lys Prime. Bring whatever forces you can. Show the Dravik that the galaxy is changing, that the age of unchallenged predators is ending. The response was mixed. Some species refused, citing neutrality or fear of Dravik retaliation, but others surprised everyone. The Turani Republic mobilized 10 heavy cruisers, their industrial might turning toward war production. The Silicate Communion sent 5 of their oldest and largest vessels, crystalline dreadnoughts that hadn't left their home system in centuries. Even minor species contributed what they could: patrol ships, armed freighters, anything that could fight. On Lys Prime, panic had given way to grim determination. The Lysian Defense Force, trained by human advisors over the past months, prepared to defend their homeworld. They were still learning, still uncertain, but they were no longer helpless. Patricia Wells had returned to Lys Prime to continue her research work. Now she found herself helping coordinate the civilian evacuation with Elder Priest Nomara. Billions couldn't be moved in 3 days, but they could shelter the most vulnerable, prepare emergency bunkers, and organize medical responses. This is our fault, Nomara said quietly as they worked. We called for help. We brought this upon ourselves. No, Patricia said firmly. The Dravik brought this upon you. They're the ones choosing violence. They're the ones who can't accept that their victims fought back. Don't you dare blame yourself for seeking help when you needed it. The 4th day arrived. Grace Howard's combined fleet hung in space near Lys Prime, a mix of human warships, alien vessels, and whatever else had answered the call. 73 ships in total. Not nearly enough. They're coming, the sensor officer reported, detecting massive faster-than-light signatures at the system's edge. Count is over 120 vessels. Composition matches Dravik bioship patterns. The Dravik fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in a massive wave. Crixath had brought everything he could muster. He'd promised his followers that they would erase Lys Prime from existence, would show humanity the price of interference. Grace opened a communication channel to all ships in her fleet. All vessels, this is Admiral Howard. You all know what's at stake here. We're outnumbered. We're facing an enemy that wants to make an example of everyone who stands against them. But we're not standing alone. Look around you. Humans, Turani, silicates, species from across the galaxy. We're here because we believe that might doesn't make right. We're here because we refuse to let bullies dictate the future. She paused, looking at the approaching enemy fleet. The Dravik think they can break us with numbers. They're wrong. Every ship in this fleet is crewed by people who chose to be here, who chose to stand for something bigger than themselves. So let's show them what that choice means. All ships weapons free. Engage at will. The Battle of Lys Prime began with coordinated fire from both sides. Human railguns and Turani plasma cannons met Dravik acid spitters and biomissiles in the void of space. The silicate vessels moved with surprising grace, their crystalline hulls reflecting and redirecting energy weapons. Sam Rosen's rapid response fleet had been recalled from the outer sectors. He led his ships in a flanking maneuver, trying to catch the Dravik formation from the side. His fighters launched and dove into the enemy swarm, trading kills with Dravik defenders. On the surface of Lys Prime, the Lysian Defense Force watched the battle unfold in orbit. Their commander, a young Lysian named Torin, who'd trained under Diana Foster before she died, gave orders to prepare ground defenses. If the orbital battle was lost, the Dravik would land. And this time, the Lysians would be ready. The battle quickly became brutal. Human ships fought with everything they had, but the numbers were overwhelming. The Dravik pressed forward, accepting losses to gain ground. 3 human destroyers were destroyed in the first hour. A Tyranny cruiser went down protecting a damaged human carrier. Neil Okoye found himself in close combat again. The valiant Dawn exchanging fire with multiple Dravik ships. His weapons crews worked with mechanical precision, but the enemy kept coming. "We can't hold this position," his tactical officer reported. "We need to fall back." "Negative," Neil said. "If we fall back, we expose the civilian evacuation transports. We hold here." Grace watched the tactical display with growing desperation. They were losing. Slowly but surely, the Dravik were pushing through their lines. In another hour, maybe 2, enemy ships would reach orbital bombardment range of Lys Prime. Then something appeared on the sensors that changed everything. "Admiral, we're detecting new faster-than-light signatures. Multiple vectors. I count over 200 ships." The sensor officer looked up in shock. "Admiral, it's everyone." Every species that was on the fence just jumped in. The Venn Collective brought their entire merchant fleet. Minor species brought everything they had. "Admiral, the cavalry just arrived." Grace felt hope surge in her chest. She opened a channel to the newly arrived fleet. "All vessels, this is Admiral Howard. Welcome to the fight. Target the Dravik ships pressing our center. Hit them hard." The tide of battle shifted. What had been a desperate defense became a coordinated offensive. Ships from dozens of species, many of them civilian vessels hastily armed for combat, poured fire into the Dravik fleet. They didn't have military training, didn't have proper tactics, but they had numbers and they had determination. Crixeth watched his advantage evaporate. The species he'd dismissed as weak and cowardly were fighting. The galaxy was fighting, and they were fighting together. "All ships focus fire on the human flagship," he ordered.
"Kill their leader."
"Break their spirit." The Dravik fleet reoriented, dozens of bioships turning their weapons toward Grace's command ship. The barrage was devastating. Shields failed. Armor buckled. Grace felt the ship shudder around her. "Evasive maneuvers," she ordered. "Return fire. Don't let them—" Then Commander Neil Okoye's voice came over the channel. "Admiral, with respect, get clear." Grace looked at her tactical display and saw what Neil was about to do. The valiant Dawn was accelerating, pushing its engines far beyond safe limits. Neil was on a collision course with the Dravik command ship, the massive bio-vessel that Crixeth commanded from. "Neil, no," Grace said. "That's a suicide run. My ship's already crippled, Admiral. Weapons are down, shields are gone, but my engines work fine." She could hear the smile in his voice. "And I've always wanted to see what happens when you ram a dreadnought into something at full burn. For the record, this was entirely my decision." Valiant Dawn out, the communication cut off. Grace watched helplessly as Neil's ship accelerated past the point of no return. Dravik ships tried to intercept, but the Valiant Dawn's remaining point defense systems kept them at bay just long enough. The collision was spectacular. The dreadnought struck the Dravik command ship at a significant fraction of light speed. The kinetic energy was catastrophic. Both vessels simply ceased to exist, replaced by an expanding cloud of debris and energy. Crixeth died instantly, never knowing what hit him. His rebellion died with him. The Dravik fleet, suddenly leaderless and facing an enemy that refused to break, began to scatter. Some ships tried to fight on. Most turned and fled. Grace ordered pursuit, but not destruction. Let them run. Let them go back to their clans and tell them what happened here. Tell them what happens when you threaten species under our protection. The battle was over. Lys Prime was safe, but the cost had been high. 27 ships destroyed. Thousands dead. Commander Neil Okoye's sacrifice would be remembered, but that didn't make the loss easier to bear. In the aftermath, something unexpected happened. The species that had come to fight didn't go home. They stayed. They helped with rescue operations, with repairs, with tending the wounded, and in the days that followed, they talked. The Galactic Assembly reformed itself into something new, the Galactic Union, a true alliance, not just a talking forum. With mutual defense agreements, shared resources, and a commitment to protect member species from aggression. Humanity didn't ask to lead it, but the other species insisted. Earth had proven it would sacrifice for others. That made all the difference. 5 years later, Patricia Wells stood in the memorial garden on Lys Prime. Statues honored those who died in the battle, human and alien alike. Commander Neil Okoye's statue stood tallest, his sacrifice remembered by billions. Elder Priest Nomara approached, moving slower now but still strong. Dr. Wells, it's good to see you again. And you, Nomara. How are your people? We thrive, Nomara said. Our Defense Force graduates new classes every month. We patrol our own space now with human partners. We even answered a distress call last month. A mining colony under attack. We saved them. He paused. We learned from you. We became shepherds too. Patricia smiled. That's all we ever wanted. Not to make you like us, but to give you the tools to protect yourselves and others. Across the galaxy, the Union continued to grow. Rapid response fleets patrolled shipping lanes. Species that once feared each other now traded and collaborated. The Dravik swarm, humiliated and broken, retreated to their home territories and stayed there. Admiral Grace Howard, now Fleet Admiral of Union forces, received another distress call. This one came from the edge of explored space from a species humanity had never encountered. They were under attack. They needed help. Grace looked at the message, then at her crew. Plot a course. Best speed. Let's go show them what the Union stands for. Her flagship, named Ardenna's Hope in honor of where it all began, jumped to faster-than-light travel. Behind it, dozens of ships from a dozen different species followed. They were shepherds now, all of them. And when someone called for help, they answered. Because that's what family does.